Hello everyone, my name is Karis Kleckner and today I'm going to be presenting my applied assignment project for the SPE course. So just a little table of contents before we start. We're going to start with a pre-work section, move into a research section. After that, we are going to cover new learning and then at the end, continued inquiry section. So let's start with the pre-work. For my topic, I decided to choose the inclusion of those with disabilities in a classroom. And for this topic specifically, I wanted to look at the inclusion of those with disabilities in a standard classroom setting. So not in like a specialized classroom of any kind. I wanted to focus solely on how children are included in classrooms that are standard, that aren't specialized in any way. It's just a normal public or private school classroom. Why I decided to choose this topic? Well, I aspire to be a teacher one day, and I was really interested in learning how current and past educators have successfully included children with disabilities in their standard classrooms. The aspect of inclusion that this topic covers is ensuring accessibility, adapting teaching methods, and promoting social integration. It also involves providing support services and advocating for policies that uphold the rights of students with disabilities. So, along with the pre-work section, the interview portion of this, for that portion, I decided to interview Carla Gibson. Carla was my vocational teacher in high school from my sophomore to senior year, so from 10th to 12th grade. And she covered my vocational class that talked about early childhood education and development. So she taught me everything that I know at my current age about teaching. And she also has 14 years of prior experience teaching in an elementary setting. So, background knowledge, she taught for 7 years in a kindergarten, 7 years in first grade, and then 7 years at a vocational school, which I went to for early childhood education. And so, altogether, overall, 21 years of experience in teaching through various different ages and grades. So for the course material section of the pre-work, the first course material that I decided to go with was the myth of culture of poverty. Why I chose this source, is because I use this source because it offers extensive information about the various myths that surround disabilities, and it covered specific ones that were related to education. I used this source to adhere more knowledge to the topic that I was covering, and I also used this source to help formulate questions for my interview. For the second course material that I decided to choose was the equity gaps for students with disabilities. And the reason I chose this source, was once again because it offers the detailed information and it specifies though on how students with disabilities learn, and it highlights the gaps in education system and how it affects those with disabilities. I used this source to form questions for my interview, and this source also helped build my extensive knowledge on the equity part of this assignment. So for the outside research portion of the pre-work, there was two sources that really stood out to me. The first one was titled Creating Accessible Learning Environments. The why/how for this source was I selected it because it demonstrates how teachers can establish accessible and inclusive learning environments for students with disabilities in their classrooms. So same thing with this one is I also used this to build my knowledge on the topic, and I also used it to help formulate questions. Same goes for the next source, which is strategies for creating inclusive classroom spaces for students with physical disabilities. So once again, I chose a source because it offers those valuable insights on how teachers can create an inclusive environment for those with disabilities. But this one focused specifically on the physical disability side. So the overall sources that I picked for my outside research, one kind of focused more on the mental side of physical disabilities, and then the other one obviously focused on the physical disabilities. Next up, we're going to cover the evidence section. So right here for my evidence, you can see that I submitted a screenshot of a text message between Carla and I regarding when we were going to schedule her interview. And then to the right of that, we can see that I also included a screenshot of the interview and some of the questions that I used when talking to Carla. Next up, we're going to cover the new learning section of this assignment. So in the new learning section, starting off with inclusion, what I learned about this and how it connected to the course was the types of disabilities covered, practical strategies, respectful terminology, understanding diverse needs, universal design principles, and inclusive and respectful classrooms. So all the information I got from this Vanderbilt University source connects to the course by providing strategies for inclusive teaching, emphasizing respectful terminology, and advocating for universal design principles, which we covered a lot in this course. These insights support this course's focus on understanding the accommodating the diverse needs of students with disabilities. For the evidence, I have a quote from the source itself. The quote said, "Students of all backgrounds and abilities want classrooms that are inclusive and convey respect. For those students with disabilities, the classroom setting may present certain challenges that need accommodation and consideration." For the next section, in the new learning, we have equity. So what I learned in this one and how it connects is minimizing travel distances, accessible materials and workstations, inclusive culture in the classroom, flexible seating arrangement, assistive technology, and teacher training. So the strategies from this article connect to the course by providing practical methods for creating equitable and inclusive environments in the classroom for students with physical disabilities. These strategies support the course's focus on understanding and addressing the diverse needs of students to promote equity and inclusion in the classroom. So the evidence for this is once again a quote. It says, "By implementing strategies such as flexible seating, assistive technology, modifications to learning materials, fostering an inclusive classroom culture, and collaboration with support systems, educators can create an environment where all of their students thrive and reach their full potential." And then the last part of the new learning section covers the access portion of this course and this assignment. So what I learned is that and how it connects are the equity gaps, the differentiated instruction, the leveraging diversity, barriers to access, and instructional strategies. So the information from this article connects to the course by highlighting the importance of differentiated instruction to address equity gaps and improve access for students with disability. This aligns with the course's focus on understanding and implementing strategies to create inclusion and equitable educational environments. And then once again, a quote for the evidence section. "To overcome equity gaps, educators need to view differentiation as a way of leveraging students' various funds of knowledge to enrich the collective learning experience so that SWDs can view difference as an instructional asset and not an impediment." And then lastly, we have our continued inquiry section. So what I want to know now, after all of the stuff that I've learned, is how the impact of inclusive education on the social and emotional developments of students with disabilities. How I will continue to learn this is basic research, possibly interviews and webinars, and educational websites and blogs, as well as academic journals and articles, books, all that fun stuff. So some questions I have listed here. I'm just going to read a couple of them. Main one is, what strategies do you think are the most effective for creating an inclusive classroom environment? What challenges do you foresee in implementing inclusive practices and how might they be overcome? And what role do you think technology can play in supporting inclusive education? And then lastly, my references. That is all for my presentation. I hope you all enjoyed and thank you so much for listening.